Welcome to a community update from the Department of Senior Affairs. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Today's topic of the show, or title of the show, is Senior Companion Program. And some of the things we'll be discussing are services provided by the Senior Companion Program volunteers, qualifications to become a senior volunteer, testimonials from a volunteer currently servicing. And with us to discuss that is Josie Quadron-Lyons, who's the supervisor of the Senior Companion Program, and Vera Abeta, who is a Senior Companion volunteer. And ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Ed. We appreciate every opportunity to share information about our program.
Well, Josie, you know, you've been a guest on the show before, and it's a great program. There's so many things that senior companions do and they offer. Sometimes it amazes me, I think, what our department does and the services they provide to a number of different people. Now, you know, I think our department touches lives in a lot of different ways every day.
You're right. We offer services in the Department of Senior Affairs for those that are very well and participate in things like Senior Olympics and go to the senior fitness centers. And then we offer services through our programs and case management to those that are very frail and maybe isolated and homebound and need services, whether it's from homemaker services, nursing services, or from our folks at home repairs and home services, and the Senior Companion.
I think one of the things too is just, you know, I work in centers, but I found out about Senior Companion Program, through you a lot. And I think also too, we take meals to homebound people. It's an amazing department, and it's funny because at Manzano Mesa, where I'm at, a lot of people come in from out of state, and you ask them, do you have these services in your city? Not anything close. So our department, with the services they provide, is definitely ranked, high in those services. And
we've been used as a model across the nation because we do provide services under one umbrella, as is part of our logo, as opposed to having many different agencies provide a portion of the services, and that way we can be more unified, and they know that they can call just the one number, the 764-6400 number, and be able to get services from A to Z. An
amazing program. Anyway, Josie, let's talk about a little bit about, if you could tell us a little bit about the Senior Companion Program. That's why we're here today, so if you could tell us a little bit about that.
The Senior Companion Program is a part of Senior Corps under the auspices of the Corporation for National and Community Services. It is a federal program and also oversees our sister programs, Foster Grandparents and the RSVP program. Senior Corps is national-wide. We have programs in every state, including Puerto Rico, across the nation, and we have in New Mexico 22 Senior Companion programs. So New Mexico is served in the very rural areas as well as the very remote areas and the cosmopolitan areas like Albuquerque. Our senior companions are volunteers. Even though they do receive a small stipend, they have to be income qualified in order to receive that. They do go through a background check that they have to pass, of course, a physical, and then they have some training. Our program is based on companionship for those clients that are homebound and maybe not getting the opportunity to maintain that connection with their communities anymore. For lots of reasons, their social life has grown smaller, either through the death of spouses or friends, and family perhaps living out of state and not being able to drive themselves, so they rely on our volunteers who will go into their homes and provide those friendly visits and companionship and some limited transportation so that they can get to the doctor's appointments, pick up groceries, prescriptions, get to the post office, and that sort of thing that they may not be able to do. Also offers an opportunity for socialization because they do, many times will go to a senior center or a meal site and participate in the meals or the activities there.
Wow, it's quite a lot of things, and I think one of the things you said is they also incorporate remote areas, Fairfax County, and there's a lot of remote areas. When we think of New Mexico, because we live here, we just think Bernalillo County. But you're saying Fairfax, they hit them all.
Right.
Which I think is even more impressive to me. Now, Vera Abeta, you're a Senior Companion volunteer.
Yes, sir.
How did you hear about the Senior Companion Program? How did you hear about it?
When I was in one of the nursing homes, there was a lady talking about that, and I put some ear to it, and I thought, oh, wow, that sounds really good. It sounds like something I would like to do. And since I do like getting along with the older generation, I put ear to it, and I got a little bit of information then. So I said, well, when I retire, that's something that I would love to do. So I got retired then, and I looked it up in the phone book and I found the phone number because I had lost the phone number by this time. It had probably been about 3 years. And so I looked it up and I said, oh, there it is. So I called. But first I went to the senior grandparent things. And I said, I don't know, let me go to this one first. So I went and I got hired there. And then when I walked out, I didn't feel comfortable. I thought, well, this is not really what I want. I really want to go to the senior companion program. So I called and I talked to the other supervisor, Heath, and he said, sure. He says, come on in. And we went through the paperwork and everything, and here I am. It's been a year.
A year, that's right.
I love my job. It's just so fulfilling.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, as far as, Josie mentioned some of the things that a senior companion does. Can you mention some of the things that you've been assigned to do and what your experience is? I'm sure you've had people that whose lives you've touched, and I'm sure.
I have. Usually I call them the day before, and I tell them I'll be there tomorrow at a so-and-so time, whenever it's scheduled, and I get there, and sometimes they just want to talk, or they'll ask you to take them to the grocery store. You sit there and have a nice conversation with them. I come and I put their groceries away, and I do just whatever they want to do, and then I ask them, is there anything else you want to do? And they said, well, let's just sit and talk again, or sometimes they want you to watch their movie that's coming out on TV. So yeah, you have no choice. You have to sit there, and it's okay. It's their day, because they ask me sometimes, what do you want to do? And I said, no, this is your day, whatever you want to do. And I fulfill their day. By the end of the day, I'm pretty well satisfied that I made them happy.
I think that's, it's so important too, is just having someone to talk to. I think that's why our centers are so important, things that we do, because there's a lot of people that just have those four walls and they don't have anything to look forward to. So they must look forward to companion visits like from Vera and your other volunteers, I'm sure, every day, because some people just are starved for, that human interaction that that because of you mentioned deaths and things like that they don't have anymore, and we take it for granted that everybody does.
Right.
They don't. That's what makes this program very important.
Right. Right.
Josie, I wanted to ask you, who qualifies to be a senior companion program volunteer? This is important too, very important.
Right. Well, we do have many policies in place set forth by the federal government, since it is a federal program. First qualification is that you need to be at least 55 years of age. Thus the name Senior Companions. We've had volunteers from 55 all the way to 104. So anywhere in between there is good. In order to receive the stipend, though, you must meet income guidelines. For a single person, it's about $23,000 a year. If you have a couple, or if you're married or spouse or partner, income for that is about $31,000 a year. The stipend is $2.65 an hour. It is tax exempt, so if you are receiving any services, housing, food stamps, SNAP program, SSI, any of those, it does not affect that. You don't even have to report it because it is federally exempt. You also have to accept the guidelines, of course, that we set forth, pass a background check and a physical. We need to make sure that the people that we're placing in the homes of these at-risk seniors are of good citizenship and are well enough to provide the services that we ask them to. And then they will, of course, go through some training. That's part of the criteria. And then they will shadow a seasoned volunteer. And when that's done, they need to accept the opportunity to serve 20 hours a week of service, and they will visit 3 to 5 clients a week. And they see the same folks every day, at the same time, with a few exceptions, of course. But the client that they're serving will know that they're going to be there every Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
2 questions for you. Now, you said they have to be 55, and I think the other thing is, and I wanted to ask that first because, we always say 50 and up. Is there a reason a senior companion program volunteer has to be 55?
That was recently changed, probably within the last 4 years. It used to be 60, but we were anticipating that the baby boomers were going to be retiring early and want, we're just going to break our doors down to get into the senior companion program or the foster grandparent program. And we also serve the Pueblo communities, the Native Indian communities, and they see a senior as being 55. And since Albuquerque serves that population, and we do have other Senior Corps programs in the Native Indian communities. We tried to respect that and lobbied, well, not lobbied, but educated Congress on that request and that need, so they were able to change it and lower the age to 55.
Okay, all right. The other thing I was going to ask you is the background check. Was that new too as well? I mean, and it's good that we're doing that, or you're doing that, because as you mentioned, you have to know who we're placing, with a senior. We have to know that. We have to know what the background is. Is that new? It might discourage some. I doubt it, because you need to know.
Right. It's actually been in place for several years, but the process has grown. Before, it was just the state background check and the sex offenders register that we had to check. Now we are required, just recently, to have fingerprints as well and do a national background check. The city does require that we do an annual background check annually. When you come into the program initially, it's just the one time for the federal requirement as well as the state requirement. But we still continue the annual background check for the city.
Okay, those are very important points. Vera, I have to ask you this. What was it about the program, Senior Companion Program, that made you want to join? What was it about? What was the hook that made you want to join?
I love the elder people. I get along with them. I can relate more with them. And when I see them just sitting there doing nothing, I want to take them out. I want to do things that they don't do every day. Give them a happy day of something that is exciting for them. And something exciting for them might be having a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or maybe going to the dollar store, or maybe cleaning out a drawer that they've been wanting to clean for a very long time. It's just making them happy for one day until the next time that I get there.
Or shopping till they drop, right? Literally. She has a client
I
that shops for about 3 hours.
Yes, I do. I have a client, and her thing is shopping. She's not able to drive at all, and she goes wacko with shopping, and that's her day. That's fine. I enjoy it too. Believe it or not, I love shopping too. So I'm right by with her, and I help her make decisions, and we sort of like the same things together. So we sort of like the same likes.
I think that's the other thing too, is what a companion sounds like they do is what the other person wants. The very purpose of that is, in other words, you're very unselfish about the companions. Are very unselfish because it's what they want to do.
Exactly.
And that you make them happy.
Yes.
You're not coming in and saying, well, let's go do this. Here's my agenda. It's their agenda.
And
I think that's important.
And they ask me when I walk in, what do you want to do? And I'm like, no, this is your day. You tell me what you would like to do, what you want to do.
And there are some parameters, of course, that are in place with the policies that are set before us. They're not allowed to go to the casino. We don't want them losing all their money and then coming back and say, the Senior Companion volunteer took me there and I lost all my money.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do the rest of the month? But there are parameters. They don't do any personal care. They don't do any homemaker services. So they're not going to be pulling out the vacuum cleaner and running that, or washing windows or shoveling snow, that type of thing. But washing dishes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cleaning out drawers, helping them fold laundry. Things that you would do when you're sitting with a friend.
I had an instance the other day where there was a bag, a plastic bag, and I thought she might slip on it, so I picked it up, and it had a bunch of chili seeds on it. So I was like, uh-oh, they went all over the carpet. So I did get the vacuum. I made the mess, and I picked it up.
No, those things happen.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that you said too is, it's good that you mentioned, no casino policy. We have that in our department.
Right.
And, people might have their own opinions about them. That's fine, but yeah, we don't do that. So
Right.
I think that's
We
important.
want to keep our jobs. We need to stay within
right.
those parameters.
So that's important to note. And I think again, it's about. It sounds like the companions are there to do what the senior wants.
They want to do.
And I think even cleaning out a drawer. People think, hey, why couldn't they do that? Sometimes people get paralyzed just not by wanting to. And then they have someone there to say, why don't we do it today? We're here, why don't we do it? And then having that companionship kind of gets people out of the doldrums that they're in.
It does.
Just in life. Because if you don't have anybody I'd go crazy. I'm a real people, that. I'm a guy to be around people, man. So I would go crazy. So I think that's so many important things. Josie, the next question we have is, what does a volunteer do for clients? I know you mentioned some things. I don't know if you want to mention some other things besides what we mentioned already.
I think probably one of the most important things that they do offer is friendship. That's probably top, because they haven't had that in a really long time in many cases. And even though we offer friendly visits, it does extend into friendships. And you will find many times that the volunteers and the clients will share many of those special occasions, whether it's a bautismo, a first communion, a birthday. They'll, particularly if the senior companion knows that the client doesn't have anyone to spend a holiday with, Thanksgiving or Christmas, they will pick them up and they will share the meal or the festivities with them, with the rest of their families. So I think friendship is probably one of the biggest
You
factors.
mentioned companion, and again, sometimes people just being invited to family events, things you didn't have to, just imagine. Again, we've had people around for Christmas and Thanksgiving and holidays since I've been born, but I couldn't imagine not having, my wife is real sensitive to people eating by themselves and being by themselves, and so imagine that, you get invited to a first communion and things like that, and they're alive again. I think when you get older, people kind of tend to, my mother just turned 90 last month, and she's still of strong, sound mind, and I think people sometimes tend to forget that, even though people maybe have aged a little bit, they still want the same things, maybe just not in the same kind of volumes, a little bit less of it.
That's correct.
But this isn't if they don't want to talk to people or interact or share their passions or joys and laugh and do the things that we all take for granted every day.
And they have so much history to share as well, either locally. One of the things working with the Native communities is that a lot of their language is lost. Just like the Spanish language sometimes with some of us, their native languages are lost. So when they have a senior companion who might be closer to their age, they're able to speak their native language, which is something they haven't been able to do as much with the younger generation as they are with that. And that's one of the testimonials that comes back to us, is that they're able to speak with someone in their native tongue. And as they get older, if they forget the second language, being English or Spanish, they're able to revert back to that. And it means a lot to them. Share the stories that they have. Oftentimes they've journaled their stories or recorded it, and are able to share it with the rest of the community.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too. It's English is our country's language, but I think there's a lot of people. My grandparents spoke Spanish, and my parents spoke it. And they learned English, but I think you're right, to be able to speak in your native tongue and something you forgot and you couldn't do anymore, and then to remember that brings you back. My mother still remembers stuff. She's 90 now. She remembers stuff when she was 8 years old. And I'm always amazed by that, and the history, like you mentioned, and just the history that a lot of seniors have. The things that they can tell us. And if you love history and you hear them tell
There's
stories.
a lot of knowledge there if you just put an ear.
You're patient, and I guess that's the other thing too the companions need to have, is a lot of patience and listening skills and people skills and empathy and sympathy and the whole thing.
Right. Speaking of history, lots of times one of the things our senior companions do as well is provide respite to caregivers who may be at their wits' end, not only because they can't afford $25 to $50 an hour at a minimum of 2 hours to pay a private agency. Our volunteers can go in there and provide the respite and hear those historical stories over and over, where the caregiver, be it a family member or a spouse, will say, yes, I know, you told me that already. But the senior companion will sit there and listen to the same story over and over, and that's okay.
That happened to me too, but I would make it sound to her like, oh, really? Really? You hadn't told me about that before. And she would tell me all over again, and that's fine. It made her happy.
Yeah, I think that's right. Acting like you heard the story for the first time. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter if they told you 50 times.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've had that happen too, and my answer is the same. Hey, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yes, exactly.
And why? I don't know why people have
or
to.
you tell them, tell me more, and they keep on, and it's wonderful.
Leads to another story.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And it's about honor and respect.
You know what?
Remembering that.
I think when I think of my mother and my father, they sure taught me that. I had to say hi to all my tios, and when I was a kid, I was like, oh my gosh.
How many more?
As I got older, I understood why. I understood,
Yeah.
you meet somebody, shake their hand, look them in the eye, things like that. It's too bad some of that honor and respect is, I don't know if we passed it on, well enough.
Right.
So
we're so busy being into ourselves that we forget to do that.
Right. Vera, how many clients do you visit each week?
5 to 6.
5 to 6?
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah, it just depends on I may have lost one, but then I have as many as I can handle. I mean, I would love to handle all of them, but
Well, 5 or 6 is quite a bit.
yeah, but I do it just fine, right, Josie?
You're doing well. They are, asked to provide 20 hours of service, but some, like Vera, will take on an extra one during the week.
Yeah.
Because we have a long waiting list for clients in the
And
northwest part of town,
there are
southwest
people
part
there
of town.
waiting, and if I can be of help, well then so be it. I'm going to do it. And I do get, at the end of the day, I go home and I just feel blessed because I was able to be there for them and make their day.
So you have to do, you said 5 or 6 a week and you put in 20 hours. Is it an hour each client, an hour and a half? How do you divide that time?
They're 4 hours to 5 hours each, so I do put almost 27 hours a week or 28, something like that. I think it's something like that.
Well, you know what? I think that's a perfect job for you too.
I love it. I love my
keeps you
job.
going.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like having a full-time job that I love, and it's fun. I call it my fun job.
I don't think you can ask for anything more than that. Josie, what qualifies someone to receive senior companion services? Because that's a question that a lot of people are going to ask once they see this program.
Right. We partner with different agencies that serve senior clients, and what they do is determine who is isolated and homebound and would benefit from the services of a senior companion. So with the partnering agencies, Department of Senior Affairs, the case management program, for example, will go into the home of a client after the referral and going through the process of calling the 764-6400 number and determine what services besides the senior companion program that they might benefit from, whether it's a homemaker, the home-delivered meals, a nurse, a personal caregiver, and they will refer them back to us, and we will in turn go out once we have a volunteer in their area to do a placement. So it's the agency that determines the need for a senior companion. And they have to be homebound and isolated. That's the criteria. Not be able to drive.
But not be able to cook for themselves.
And
like
sometimes not be able to cook for themselves. And in that case, they would probably be getting home-delivered meals. Our volunteers do help prepare light meals, although sometimes it's a full-blown, 3 or 4 course meal when the different cultures get together. It won't be just a ham and cheese sandwich. It'll be a little bit from this country, a little bit from this country, and then something local. And
I've made tortillas before.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, I mean she says, "Oh my gosh, I just love them. I just love them." And I said, "Okay, it's you and I make them." So we, got out the flour, and she had her hands in the dough, and we made tortillas.
Yeah, it brings me back to my mother making them for my father. So
Yep.
I bet I got to ask you this too: is the relationship between companions and seniors, the companions and the seniors that you serve, is I'm pretty sure it's respectful. In other words, they don't try to take advantage. They don't want more than you can deliver. Is what I'm asking. Sometimes I guess they do, and
sometimes
that's why
they
parameters
do.
are
Right.
in place.
Mm-hmm. And it happens occasionally. We do have volunteers that will go outside those boundaries as well, and then we have to kind of rope them back in and say, there's a reason for this. It's for your protection. Because
Right.
if you end up doing X, Y, and Z, if you're only allowed to do A, B, and C, then the next time, if for some reason this placement doesn't work and the client gets another volunteer, they're going to expect X, Y, and Z and not just A, B, C. And then we'll get a call from a very unhappy client in the office saying, well, this volunteer used to do that for me. Why won't this one? And usually because it's not allowed, including the mileage. We allow 10 miles round trip, which we understand is not a lot. But like many of other social services and other programs, we do become victims of budget cuts. So those, that transportation does get limited. But it's allowed, and we do make exceptions for usually medical appointments.
Probably better that it does.
Yeah.
People would expect them probably.
And if you keep busy in the house, I mean, the 4.5 hours or 5 hours, it goes quick because they're looking at the clock. You're like, oh, you have to go in 10 minutes. They know what time you have to go, and it just happens. And says,
Sure.
Oh, that's okay. I'll
Things
be.
happen when you're having fun. Vera, what do you like best about being a senior companion? What's the best thing you like about that?
I like going out and making people happy, make them feel important, make them feel that they are the ones that we look up to. We are the ones that are there to help them. We make them feel like a person that's very, very important to everyone. And sometimes they don't feel important, but they are. I make them feel like you are the only one here that I am paying attention to. You know, I just make them feel like they're wanted and they're loved. A lot of them feel like they're not loved, they're not wanted, they're not, you know, helped with. Like if they have a phone call and somebody hung up on them, you know, I says, well, can I help you with that phone call? Let me call and see why they hung up on you. And so I do. I take over the phone and, you know, I help them get whatever they were looking for, wherever they were looking at it for. And that, you know, says, oh, wow, well, you know, I do have somebody that cares. I do have somebody that loves me.
Well,
I do have some.
yeah, I don't think we can talk enough about how important that is, self-worth and self-value,
Right.
and, you know,
Yeah.
self-esteem.
Right.
Because when you lose those human connections, and then, you know, I can only imagine.
Right.
Gosh, you know, you have, like, I remember a senior telling me, all I'm going home to is 4 walls.
Right.
Right.
And
I
that
never forgot
loneliness can
that.
always exacerbate whatever medical conditions they have.
Yes.
And they might feel more depressed,
Depression.
their blood pressure will go up, or,
Right.
you know, it just can exacerbate them. So this certainly makes a difference.
Josie, who determines who can be a client?
The agencies again.
We did mention
Yes,
that.
right.
We did mention that. Vera, the last question we have for you is, what does being a senior companion? You know, you mentioned that. What does it do for you? What does it do for you?
Well, there's a lot it does for me. It fills my void. After my husband's passed away and, you know, stuff has in the family, I feel like I'm fulfilled with doing something for somebody else, and I hope that somebody else will be there for me when I get that age. But right now, it's just a fulfilling job, and I have wonderful supervisors that always are there to listen. And I mean, if we have any issues or any concerns, any questions, just call Josie or call Heath, and they always have it looks like they have a smile at the other end of the phone to help you.
Yeah,
And they
yes,
take you. I mean, they try to
Heath Barkley does an
do
outstanding
your
job
solutions
for
and
Josie.
come up, you know, all your problems and stuff. And then after you talk to them, it's just like fills up your day and said, I didn't have a problem at all.
You know, we've got about a minute left. Josie, you want to give us any numbers we need to talk about, or any that people need to call if they're interested, things like that, before we close the show?
Okay.
Your final word's yours.
All right. Well, one thing I did fail to mention, but the City of Albuquerque is our sponsor, as well as one of our funders, along with the Aging and Long-Term Services Department of New Mexico. And again, we are a federal program. If you want to reach us, call us at 764-1612. We are in desperate need of volunteers, particularly in the northwest part of town and the South Valley. So if you have a few extra hours that you would like to give to your fellow senior, please call us again at 764-1612. We'll be more than happy to take you into the program once you've met all the qualifications.
Great. Josie Quadon Lyons, Supervisor, Senior Companion Program. Vera Abeyta, Senior Companion Program Volunteer. Thanks so much for being our guest. We sure
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed.
You bet. For the Department of Senior Affairs, I'm Ed Nunez.